The Creeper is back, and he's hungry. This time, he's in the final hours of his 23-day feast, and he's desperate for flesh. The cast is bigger, the Creeper has more screen time, and deaths have escalated. Hey guys, what's happening? Niyat here with Film and Comics Explained. And, as requested, today, we're exploring Jeepers Creepers 2.
Look, you can't stop it! It'll be back. 23 years from now. 23 years from then.
As we covered 2 weeks back, every 23 springs he rises and feasts on human flesh for 23 days. He also carefully selects his victims and will not stop until he gets what he wants. Jeepers Creepers 2 essentially takes place on the final day of his feeding cycle, and the Creeper has a few new tricks up his sleeve. In the first film, we see the Creeper wielding a battle axe, but in the sequel, he uses throwing stars and knives too. In true sadistic fashion, most of his weaponry is made out of the bones and skin of his previous victims. In fact, the second throwing star he aims at the bus is actually made of Dari Jenner's belly button, evident by the rose tattoo. Speaking of Dari, you may have noticed that his eyes are brown instead of greyish blue in this movie. That's because he's wearing Dari's eyes, which he stole at the end of Jeepers Creepers. The sequel also shows a clearer look at the Creeper's regenerative abilities. Though we knew that he could recover from just about any attack, this is the first time we've actually seen him reconstruct his body. When he decapitates Dante on the bus, we actually see him eat, digest, and then transform the human head back into his own. This is also the first movie to reveal exactly what happens when the Creeper goes into hibernation. The demon appears to grow slower and weaker when he reaches the end of the 23rd night, nearly succumbing to the wounds inflicted upon him during this time, before remaining completely stationary, posed like a statue. Little Billy Taggart is putting up scarecrows on his father's cornfield when he notices that there's something really off about one of them. But before he can call for help, the Creeper lunges, flying away with the boy, while his father and older brother watch in disbelief. His father, Jack, isn't about to kick back and let the Creeper get away with murdering his son. He and Jack Jr. find a dagger dropped by the Creeper in the cornfield, and discover that it has some kind of telepathic connection with the demon, automatically seeking a turner out. Using this information, Jack gets to work creating a homemade harpoon gun to mount on their truck, cleverly attaching the dagger to the end of the harpoon so that it will function like a homing beacon. Meanwhile, a bus full of high school basketball players, coaches, and cheerleaders are heading home from their championship game along the East 9 highway when a shuriken pierces one of their tires.
What in the hell are we looking at?
Have to be shot into it like a bullet. Jesus Christ, the damn thing has got teeth in it!
While the bus is pulled over, 2 teens, Izzy and Bucky, pull up the radio and conveniently hear all about the events in the first movie.
County coroners say the bodies were found stitched to each other. One on-the-scene witness called it a human tapestry of torture and sadism.
Unable to reach anyone on the radio or on their cell phones, they decide to keep rolling along at a slow pace with their pierced tire and hope for the best. But as nightfall approaches, one of the cheerleaders, Minxie, falls asleep and has a prophetic dream, with both Billy and Dari frantically trying to warn her about the Creeper. She wakes up to another burst tire, but is unsure what to make of it all. Everyone on the bus is getting thoroughly freaked out now, and the adults attempt to fire off flares for help, when suddenly, the Creeper appears and plucks the coach off the ground.
We don't have time for bullshit, Scotty. Go sit down!
The kids all head back on the bus and are disturbed at the sight of their teachers getting slaughtered one by one. With no one to protect them, the Creeper starts toying with his food. Bucky jumps back on the radio, and this time, the Taggart's answer is call. Jack is determined to avenge his son, and declares that the Creeper is his prey now. The Creeper takes Dante, Jake, and Scotty down, utilizing his arsenal of weapons, before Jack arrives and successfully distracts him with his homemade harpoon. Rhonda, Izzy, and Double D manage to find shelter in a truck and use it to rip a leg, arm, and a wing off the monster. Jack then manages to distract it with his attacks just long enough for the clock to strike the end of the 23rd day. With the Creeper now posed in hibernation for 23 years, Taggart sets him up as a sideshow attraction and sits poised, waiting to finish him off for good.
Francis Ford Coppola convinced me to do the sequel. We both saw it as an opportunity to come back and do the first one again the way I really wanted to, which was with a lot of big suspense, action, and horror kind of put together.
Funnily enough, the creative team never intended to make a sequel. I mean, half of the reason they made the every 23 years for 23 days the Creeper eats rule was so that there wouldn't be a rushed cash-in sequel. They feared that numerous sequels would cheapen the franchise and the creature, and ultimately decided to set the movie on the final day of the Creeper's 23-day cycle to heighten the stakes. In the first movie, we don't get a clear look at the Beast until the final third or so, but he has a lot more screen time here. This of course meant that they would have to do a lot more special effects shots, and ultimately, there are about 100 more digital shots in Jeepers Creepers 2 than there were in the original.
My original Jeepers script, the kids trapped in a bus, was like a subplot. However, the more the story progressed, the most interesting part became these kids trapped on this bus.
The majority of the story also takes place on one location, the school bus set. Al Santos, who plays Dante, said that they spent 2 to 3 months, 12 to 16 hours a day on the bus, 5 days a week. While this obviously would have been a nightmare, Travis Schiffer, who played Izzy, explained that spending all that time up close and personal with the cast was helpful, allowing them to build connections and a sense of camaraderie. Jonathan Breck is amazing, once again, as the Creeper, but for me it's Ray Wise who plays Jack Taggart Sr. who steals the show. You'll likely recognize him as Leland Palmer from the Twin Peaks series, where he also plays a grieving father. Like Ahab going after his white whale, Taggart's entire being is consumed with defeating the Creeper. According to Wise, just like Star Trek First Contact, there are actually scenes where Jack was going to recite part of Captain Ahab's speech, but apparently these sections were cut as the references went over audiences' heads at test screenings. The film was a big hit at the box office, grossing over $120 million against a $17 million budget. Though it did better commercially, critical response was a lot weaker, with the consensus being that the movie is competently made, but it doesn't have the scares of the original. I think much of that has to do with the fact that we know nothing about him in the first movie. Now that we understand what the Creeper is and how he functions, the suspense and horror of the unknown is gone. Despite this, I love that this movie doesn't take itself too seriously. The sequel embraces the campier side of horror and brings to mind some of the sillier slashers of the 80s and 90s, like Chopping Mall and Alligator.
Alligator.
If you're looking for genuine scares, you might be disappointed, but if you're satisfied with B-movie levels of the goofy and deranged, you'll definitely get a kick out of Jeepers Creepers 2. But with that said, I'd love to hear what you guys thought about this movie, so please share that in the comments below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, come join our regular streams on Twitch, and yeah, if you have any other suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. As always, it's been a pleasure. Niyat here with Film and Comics Explained. Thanks for stopping by.
Oh, God. Don't tell me that's a belly button in the middle of the night. I know what I just said. There's something